back again. Here we are. And so we were talking about how the transactional model of communication actually, for us, does leave room to study intrapersonal communication. So what we're going to do is, with this transactional view, what it means is that oftentimes intrapersonal communication is viewed as existing on different, or communication as a whole is viewed as existing on just different levels. And so that's where we're at here with this particular slide. So first of all, you've got it as a different level. And usually these levels are in reference to the number of people involved. And so you would have the public level, which is the large scale communication. Interpersonal, which is usually just between 2 or 3 people, and then you would break it down to even a smaller level of it being communication within the self, with intrapersonal communication. Now, what that would then mean is that intrapersonal communication is about communication at the level of the individual. And I want to highlight the specificity of this language. At the level of the individual. Just viewing it as a communicative level does not necessarily mean that it leaves room for us to discuss it as happening within the self, if that makes sense. And so this would allow us to talk about it as communication involving a single communicator, and it would give us a setting in which the communicator is both the sender and the receiver. So that is one of the ways that the transactional model allows us to begin to look at it, is communication that is going on at the level of the individual. Okay, so this is a decent start. This is a decent start for us as people who want to study intrapersonal communication, get better at it, and grow in this area. So another thing that the transactional model does, okay, sorry, I did forget I was doing this. Some would define this level of communication as communication with oneself. It does require you to go from the level of the individual to with one's self. But we're going to see how that actually works a little bit later, a little more effectively. Okay? So then we go to intrapersonal communication as a phenomenon. So we have this idea that communication can happen at a level. You've got the big level, you've got the small level, stuff like that. Now we can move to it as a communicative phenomenon. So this might sound a little weird, but let me explain. So a single human communicator is both the source and the object of interaction. Now, I know that this might seem a little bit just like a switch in semiotics from the comparison or just on the prior slide that said you are both sender and receiver. Yes, but this moves to a little bit more of a conceptual way for us to understand how we communicate with ourselves. So I am not just the sender here, okay? I am the source. That goes a little bit deeper. It's not just me being the source of a message. It's actually me being the source of the perception, the meaning making that has to happen. I'm accessing a representational system to put this message together. I am the source. I'm not just the sender, right? So the difference here between being a level where you're the sender and the receiver and it being a phenomenon and you being the source and the object would be this, okay? If I'm the sender and the receiver, that's like, let's just say, I know not all people do this anymore, but let's just say I have a greeting card I need to send to someone in my family who lives across the country, okay? I will be the source of the message. I will be the one who goes and gets the greeting card. I'll take it home. I'll write something lovely on the inside of the card. I'll put the card inside the envelope. I'll close it up. I'll address it, okay? I'm the source of the message, right? But then the sender of the message is going to be the post office. I'm going to go and I'm going to have, and all they do is send it. That's it. What this does for us is it allows us to kind of dig a little bit deeper when we say, okay, there's sender and receiver, and there's source and object, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, let's discuss it in the discussion boards, okay? Because it's a conceptual shift that is important for us in intrapersonal communication, okay? We don't have to make this distinction when we're studying interpersonal or intercultural or any of these other classes. This is a conceptual shift we have to make in this course, okay? We assume it to be in the others, but we actually have to dive in and talk about it in this one. And so it's a communicative phenomenon where you're the source and the object of the interaction, and that's spoken language on the intrapersonal level. So you're actually communicating with yourself. Now we're going to go a little deeper. You probably already are asking the question, wait. What about if I'm thinking? We'll ask that, okay? So you have the level and the phenomenon, and these can be helpful in helping us understand what's going on, but there are ways to be even more useful with it, okay? Both of these are true, but strangely, you're going to think this is nuts. They're not specific enough to be truly useful in what we're trying to do. So to really dig in here, we're going to hit some questions to guide our search, because we are trying to locate intrapersonal communication. So far, what we've done is we've talked about it. You've got it as a level, you've got it as a phenomenon. It's linked to the transactional model, and we're saying that there is room in the transactional model for what we're doing. So let's take a look at this. We have here some questions to help us as we go. So here's our first one. When would we say we're talking to ourselves? And when would we say we are thinking about something? This is an interesting question. These don't seem to be the same thing. Is one intended to be intrapersonal communication and one not? I think that's a really good question. We're going to work to answer that, and I will come back to this slide and we'll give answers at the end of this, okay? Probably not this screencast, but we will come to some answers, okay? So, okay, is communicative behavior a special case of behavior, or is all behavior communicative? For instance, are there particular internal cognitive behaviors that are criterial to communication? This is a tough one. And let me be honest, there are 3 questions here on this slide, and this is the one that I have the most difficult time really answering clearly. So we'll definitely come back to that. And then here's our last one. When are we engaging in intrapersonal communication? I think that's a good question. You know, we've said one cannot not communicate. We're always communicating. Well, does that mean we're always intrapersonally communicating, or does that mean that, you know, there are different kinds or types? I think these are 3 really good questions. And so these 3 questions in mind, we are going to now move on to step 4. And buckle up, folks. Step 4 and step 5 are going to, actually step 4 by itself is just going to have some weird concepts. Hang in here with me as we go through this, okay? So we're going to get now to step 4. And step 4 is going to have us discussing, and I'm going to come back for just a minute. I'm hiding my face so you can see the slides, okay? Now that we're in step 4, we have to differentiate between sensation and perception. So here we have sensation, and here we have perception, all right? Now, you could probably take some of your common sense and begin to kind of piece together really what this difference is and what it means, but for us, we're going to use some big name thinkers, well, I say some, one in particular, to really help us understand this. So let me give you a basic grasp here. Some of this language is going to be strange, okay? So sensation. Sensation is closer to a simple quality like hot, cold, red noise, pain. So a sensation is where if I were to accidentally touch the burner on my stove, my body is going to react to that heat before I'm even able to make meaning of it, right? Cold is a sense, taste is a sense, smell is a sense. It's a biological thing that occurs. And so so sensation is just the basic experience of it, okay? And then perception. So perception is a little more complex. And I have to hide myself so you can see this. So perception is a complex quality. And so here we go. the more the object is ascribed with relations, the more it is something placed in a class, named, measured, compared, assigned a function, etc., 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 then the closer it approaches perception. So here's what this is really saying, okay? What it's saying is, and I'm going to bring myself back. So here's what this is saying, okay? Sensation, and we're going to get this on the next slide, okay? So sensation and perception, the difference between them is that sensation is receptive and perception is constructive. Okay? So let's take a look at that. Follow me here. We're going to reference a really great thinker. He's sort of considered the American father or grandfather or whatever you want to call it of American psychotherapy or psychoanalysis, psychiatry, something. I can't remember what the right word is, but William James is an important thinker in our philosophical history, and so he's going to say this. Okay, sensation is a receptive act. Okay, so what that means then is that I can't construct sensation. I have to receive it. I have to touch something hot to receive the sensation. I have to taste something cold to receive the sensation. Does that make sense? I can't just construct the sensation. I have to find some way to receive it. Okay? So perception is a constructive act. All right? Sensation is, in terms of knowledge, mere acquaintance with a fact. Okay? So I'm acquainted with it because it's just something that I have to receive. Perception's function, on the other hand, is knowledge about, okay, a fact. And this knowledge admits numberless degrees of complication. I think I meant admits numberless. I'm not sure why I have that word of right there. I have proofread this thing 3 times and still missed it. So I apologize for that, okay? So here's the thing. We receive sensation. Perception is then constructing something based on what we've received, okay? So sense is reception, perception is then construction, okay? Where I receive the hot in my mouth from my cup, and then my perception is, ooh, this is coffee, this is good, it's a little too hot, so I'm going to have to really sip it sort of slowly. That's the difference. Make sense? So it makes sense. That was not even funny, but sort of. So here's the thing, I will hide myself. As we complicate a sensation, which is what we're saying here, okay? As we make things more complicated, we are engaged in intrapersonal communication. So if I take a sip of my coffee, right, here's my coffee. If I take a sip of my coffee and it's too hot, then the hot is just the sensation. But when it's too hot, the sense is going to happen, it's going to hit me, and I'm going to go, oh my gosh, that's too hot. I should have blown on it, I should have waited. What happens after the sense? Everything I attach onto that sense, that's the perception. That's where we're at with that. Okay? So hang in here. We're going to get to the next slide here. So receptive, constructive. Sensation, receptive. Perception, constructive. Okay? So here we go to the next slide. So said another way, and we're still talking about William James here, okay? So knowledge of, acquaintance, and knowledge about. So the knowledge of is to know something by way of direct experience. So this, folks, would be sensation. Okay? This would be sensation. This is where, so James talks about the flavor of a pear. I could take a bite of a pear, the flavor of it is there. And he's talking about the flavor. It's just the sense, the flavor of it, okay? That is knowledge of. I'll bring myself back here because this is philosophical. So the knowledge of is sensation. Knowledge about is to have the conceptual knowledge, okay? Knowing about is to operate on it with our thoughts. So the knowledge of, I taste it, the taste is there. Knowledge about, that's where I go, that's tasty. That's a juicy, delicious pear. Make sense? And so me just having the taste is sensation. Me then realizing and knowing it's a pear and enjoying it and all of that, that is knowledge about. Okay? And this is confusing until the next slide, which we will start soon.